red House districts, but it is also about a movement and what we want to get done. Because otherwise, I figure, why run for this job if you're not going to have real solutions for real people's problems?
Go right here.
Hi. So thank you for standing up for voting rights and making it a central part of your platform and spending this entire session on it. But I'm concerned that even if we win back the House, the Senate, and the White House, and Democrats start pushing for voting reforms, the Supreme Court still stands in our way. In the past, they've overturned the parts of the Voting Rights Act. They've refused to take up gerrymandering, and of course, there's Citizens United, which you mentioned. Eric Holder proposed raising the number of seats on the Supreme Court to offset the justices that were stolen from President Obama. Do you agree with that? And, if not, are there any other structural reforms that you might make to the court, like term limits?
Sure.
And I know this is off topic, but, Roe v.
It's not really off topic.
But Roe v. Wade is also tied up in the
Exactly,
Supreme Court
exactly.
issue.
So
Thank you.
I would look at all those things, and I think some of this is leverage that you can have as you go forward, depending on if you start passing things, because you actually have a Congress that's working, because you have a president that's working, you have a mandate from the people. We need all this to make this work, or we're not even going to get to your question, right? Because if we don't take back the presidency, we're not going to get there. And I would look at those things. I think the most important thing to do, though, on day one, and I watched this happen, I watched the difference when Obama came in, and I had a front row seat on the Judiciary Committee. When Obama came in, we were in the middle of the economic crisis, right? And Mitch McConnell vowed to do everything to make him not the president, right? That's what the situation we were in. And at the time, we had different vote thresholds, and so we meandered through those open judicial seats, and it took too long to fill them, right? Now Trump comes in, they change the rules, right? They keep something called the blue slip in place, which is important, gives people a safer district court. That's the only thing between us and the district courts, that at least in the states where there's one Democratic senator, we have some say over who it is. But yet they have been moving on those faster. So I know a lot, coming from a legal background, on judges and how to get this done. So I would make this, you asked about the legislative priorities, this is a different kind of thing. Before I would get into that office, get people moving, get names approved, work with the senators literally before you take your seat, so you have names and you're ready to go. There's nothing stopping you from doing this, because there will be a slate of retirements, right, of people who are waiting, that have seen what's going on, that want to make sure Donald Trump doesn't replace them. And so we just have to fill those jobs and get that done, and then look at making sure that we are filling judicial seats and that people are not hanging on to them until the very end, which is a whole nother problem, which I'm not going to get into right now. But we have to do that, and we will, my guess is, have some, and I'm talking your district level, circuit court level, we will have some Supreme Court seats that we have to fill, and I think that's going to be very important. So that has got to be the realistic first priority, and then you see what the landscape is in terms of who's in and what you can do with some of these other changes. It's a really good question, but remember, we are not going to be able to do any of this until we put someone that can win in the White House. And one of my arguments is that I have won everything I've ever run for. I have won in the reddest of red congressional districts, ones that Donald Trump won by 20 points, and I have not done it, as you can see by my positions on Roe v. Wade and the environment, by selling out on my values. I've won it by looking at people in the eye and being honest with them and being blunt with them. Sometimes they don't agree with me, but they know that they can trust me, that I'm going to have their back. And that building of trust is so important right now with our electorate, when we have people that just are ready to give up on elected government. And the only thing, by the way, holding us together are local officials, where you are back there, who people actually trust. I really mean this. I'm not just sucking up to these guys. That is true, and you have that in spades in New Hampshire. So a lot of this is building that trust. So I have the case to make, having won in these districts, including Michelle Bachmann's, over and over again. And I will say that I've done it literally every time I've run, including when I ran for high school. The student council, where my slogan was, as I mentioned, revealed for the first time on Jimmy Kimmel last week, because he had some funny slogans he wanted me to use, which I'm not using. And I noted to him that one I'm not using is what I used in high school, which was all the way with Amy K. I think that has some real problems for me right now. But anyway, and by the way, if you want to get a sense that I think sometimes when there's all these incredible candidates, many of whom are friends of mine running, I will say, as we talk about running against Donald Trump, having a little sense of humor for people that heard me on Love It or Leave It, when I thought I was drinking a glass of water, but it was in fact, this is a Pod Save America podcast in that grouping. And I thought it was a glass of water, and it was an entire glass of vodka that was by my side. That was last Friday that I did. That's worth watching, listening to that podcast, because I do think there's something to this, that with Donald Trump, we have to be ferocious and tough in how we run this. But that also means keeping our heads on our own agenda, not going down every rabbit hole with him, right, no matter what he taunts us with. And then also remembering to use some humor, because so much of what he does is absurd. He uses humor, you just don't think it's funny. But he does that all the time. And so when he went after me for announcing in that blizzard, in my permanent snow globe, I thought someone said, should we take it inside? I thought, well, what would they think in New Hampshire if we did that? No. And so when I announced, he sent out a tweet making fun of me for talking about climate change in the middle of a blizzard. And he called me Snow Woman, which isn't that bad. So I wrote back, Donald Trump, the science is on my side on climate change, and I'd like to see how your hair would fare in a blizzard. Using the absurdity of the stuff he does, and I don't mean it like that's your whole theme of the campaign, but having someone that can go with the punches and do that is really, really important. And if you don't think a woman can take him on, look at what Nancy Pelosi